We begin the Gemara today on the Zayin Amud Aleph, the top line of the Yamud. It said in the Mishnah that the Chachamim say, over here actually the Gemara quotes it B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda, interesting. This is talking about benegayah to trapping different rodents, whatever there is in your field. The Gemara brought over there, it's, the Mishnah that is Ishus, Achbarim, that are in your field and they're damaging the produce in your field. So you're allowed to trap them in your field. So Rabbi Yehuda said, Mizdeya ilon kedarkai. In an orchard, you're allowed to trap them in the usual way because they actually cause a lot of damage there. So we're talking, of course, on chalamayid. But from a grain field, so they don't cause so much damage. So you can trap them, but not in the usual way. So the Gemara will explain what this means. What does it mean, not in the usual way? In other words, it's I guess with less tircha or with just to show a change. You don't do it in the regular way on chalamayid. So in a Braise it explains this. What's the usual way to trap any of these animals in the field? So chayfer guma. So you dig a little hole in the ground, and that's so they go into the hole or they come out of the hole, and then v'toila b'mitzuda, and then you hang a trap outside, and then when it comes out, it gets trapped in this. Keitzad shaloi kedarkai. Well, how do you trap these animals? Shaloi kedarkai. Noyitz shpud. You stick a spit into the ground, a metal spit into the ground, and then a makeh bekordim, and you bang with a hammer at the top of this metal spit, and then it pushes down the earth below it, and whatever animals that there are inside the ground get smashed over there, under the ground. Tanya, in a Braisa we learned, Rab Shimon ben Elazar Omer, or another Girsa in the Gemara is that it's Rab Elazar, Rab Gamliel. Upon him, he said, "Kisha mizdei lavan shaloi kedarkai." This limitation that it said in the Mishnah that by a grain field, so you don't trap the animals in the usual way. Lo amru ela mizdei lavan asmuch leir. So that's when you have a grain field that's near the city. And over there, like I said, there's not much damage like it is in an orchard, so therefore you have to make this change when you trap the animals. But if you have your grain field that's right near an orchard, so then afila kedarkai. So then even though you have this issue in your field of grain, you're allowed to go and trap the animals even in the usual way. Because Shema Yetzim is because it's right near your orchard, and they can come out very easily into your orchard, and they're going to damage your trees over there. So you're allowed to trap them in the regular way. The next thing it said in the Mishnah, benegeya to a fence around your field. You're allowed to repair a fence around your property. So the Mishnah said you're not allowed to build a fence from scratch, like on Shemitah, but you're allowed to repair the fence. So the Gemara, Keitzad Makrin. So how do you repair this fence? You're not mamish fully building it, but you're just repairing it. Rav Yosef says, Behutze v'dafna. You take branches from a palm tree and from a laurel tree, and you put them up there. Like Rashi says, you take branches from a laurel tree, and you tie together the branches from the palm tree, and you create a closure for any breach you had in your garden or in your field. Masnite tana, in a Braisa it says a little different. Tzar b'tzroir. You place rocks there in the place where there's a breach, but you don't put cement to fully finish the wall. Rav Chisda said, all this that the Mishnah is saying, that you could only repair it sort of temporarily, but not fully build it, this is only by a wall of a garden. But when it comes to the wall of your courtyards, and over here you're allowed to build it properly. And the reason is because in the wall of your courtyard, you're afraid of ganovim. They could come into your house and come in and steal your money, steal your possessions. So over here, even on cholamayid, you're allowed to build it properly. Only in the garden, where they're not going to come into your private courtyard and into your house, over there you only have to make a temporary fix. But over here in the courtyard, you're allowed to fix it properly. Shall we say we have a rayet, what Rav Chisda said from the following Braise. So it says in the Braise, if you have a wall that's leaning over into the Rishus Harabim, so then what do you do with this? So even on Cholamayid, you're allowed to demolish the wall and then build up the wall regularly. Because this is a situation where there's a danger. So what do you see? What is this Braisa speaking about? It's talking about a kaisel, a wall of a chatzar. And here regarding the wall of a chutzner, it says you could demolish it regularly and build it up regularly. So too Rav Chisda said before regarding a wall of a chutzner that you could build it normally. So the Gemara says, no, of course there's no raya from here. Hasam kediktani taima. There, the Braisa clearly says the reason why over there you're allowed to do it. Because it's a leaning wall, that it's a sakana, it could fall on people. But in a regular chutzner, but what Rav Chisda said, because you're concerned that your possessions, your money might get stolen, lav dafka we make the same heter. Ikadamri, others, when they brought this Braisa, they brought it in the opposite. When they get to what? Hafsid merubah? Okay, but lav dafka, it's daimit to a sakana. Sakana is chamiris akante meisur, it's a whole different story. Others, when they brought this Braisa, brought it actually as a question. Toshema, let's hear from what it says in this Braisa. Kaisel ha-goichel Rishus HaRabim. This kaisel that's leaning over to Rishus HaRabim. So seiser ubayne kedarkai. You demolish the wall and you build it up again, regular in the normal way. Mipnei ha-sakana. So it says in the Braisa clearly the reason is of sakana. So mipnei ha-sakana. And when you have this wall in your chutzner, only because of the sakana you're allowed to totally repair it regular. But if there's no sakana, you're not allowed, even though it's a wall of your chutzner. So there's a question, that Rav Chisda, this refutes what Rav Chisda said. So Rav Chisda will answer you, you're right, over there it's Taki says only with sakana, but Hassam over there, Seiser Ubayna. The Chiddush there is we allow him to demolish the wall and to build up the wall again. Hacha Bayna v'lei Seiser. What Rav Chisda was saying was regarding a courtyard that if you have a breach in your wall, you could build it up fully, but you're not demolishing anything and then building it. So the chiddush there is that only with sakana you're allowed to do both, demolish and build it. Okay, so the Gemara now asks on this, Hasam Nami there as well, if the whole issue is the sakana that it could fall into the Rishus HaRabim, list of Alei Livni, why doesn't he just demolish the wall and let him not build it up at all now? Answers the Gemara, Im Kain, if you're going to tell a person that we're only allowing you to demolish it, and then for the next few days you're going to be here without a wall around your courtyard, he's going to hold himself back. He's not going to want to be exposed for the next few days. He's not going to demolish it. So in order to prevent the sakana, you have to allow him to build a wall as well. The Mishnah, you could also bring a proof to what Rav Chisda said, that the Mishnah, when I was speaking about the wall, that you could only repair it and not build it, it's only talking about a wall of a garden. It wasn't talking about a wall of a courtyard. Why? Because afterwards it says in the Mishnah, when it comes to Shemitah, you're allowed to build and repair your wall normally. Now, the heiche, what kind of a wall is the Mishnah talking about when it spoke about Shemitah? Was it talking about a wall of your courtyard? Is this something that the Mishnah has to say? How does Shemitah have anything to do with your courtyard of your house? I mean, there's no Shemitah applies to a field, to a place where there's a garden or whatever else is growing there, but not for your courtyard. Elalav degina. When the Mishnah brings up Shemitah, so you clearly see that the Mishnah is speaking about a garden. And the chiddush regarding Shemitah is, even though it looks like that the reason you're building the wall is because you want to guard and protect the fruits and keep it for yourself, even though in Shemitah you have to be mafked everything, and nevertheless the Mishnah says, no, you're allowed to repair the wall of your property. You'll keep your fruits hefker, but you're just repairing the wall, and that's allowed. That was the chiddush of the Mishnah. So what do I see from this? If the Mishnah brings up Shemitah, it must be that the Mishnah was speaking about a garden, not about your own courtyard. Shma mina. So from this I see that, like Rav Chisda said, regarding a courtyard, we don't make this distinction. Not only could you repair the wall shalei kedarka, just putting some stones there or putting some twigs there, you're allowed to repair it fully. So Mishnah, going back to halachas of Chol HaMoed. So here we're going to be learning a little bit about the halachas of Negoyim and regarding Chol HaMoed. Rav Meir says, Royim is a Negoyim, a Kayin is allowed to come and see a person with a nega. Lahakel, but that's only for the purpose to be makel, to tell him that he's toy. But he can't come and see the Negoyim of a person if he's going to come to tell him that he's tameh. Rashi says here, the reason is because it says, V'samachta b'chagecha. Then in Chol HaMoed you have to be b'simcha. You come and tell a person that he's tameh, you're taking away from his simcha. He has to now leave his family, he has to leave the community, he has to go out. So for that you're not allowed. A Kayin is not allowed to see a person with a nega on Chol HaMoed, whether it's to come tell him that he's tired, whether it's to come tell him that he's tameh. Either way, we don't allow a Kayin to see a mitzayre. As we'll see in the Gemara, the reason for this machlokes. Tanya, Rab Meir Aimes, on a Braisa we learned, Rab Meir said, Royin is an Negoyim lahakol, avalei lahachmer. That the Kohen can come and see the Negoyim if he wants to be mitayir him, and not to be mitame him. Rabbi Yosi Aime, Rabbi Yosi says, Loi lahakol, v'loi lahachmer. No, your Kohen does not see the Negoyim either way. Not for kula, not to make him tameh, not to make him tired. Why? Shima ta'ayme. Niskak leila hakil. If you say that the Kohen could come and see him to tell him that he's tired, niskak le'af lahachmer. What if he discovers that he's actually tameh, that he actually does have a nega? He's going to have to tell him that he's tameh. So essentially, the machlokes between Rabbi Yosi and which is the Chachamim of our Mishnah, and the Rab Meir is what happens if a Kohen sees a person that he wanted to tell him that he's tired, but he discovers that he's tameh. Rab Meir says the Kohen doesn't have to say. He can keep his mouth closed until after Chol Hamoed. He'll only tell him if he sees that he's tired. I'll tell him he's tired. If he discovers he's tameh, he'll just keep his mouth closed. Mashenk and Rabbi Yosi says no. Once what you see is what you see, you have to tell him as it is. You're going to have to tell him that he's tameh. So therefore you can't see it in Chol Hamoed. The Gemara is soon going to bring the source of this machlokes in the Psukim. So the Gemara, Omar Rebbe. So Rebbe said about this machlokes, Nirin divrei Rab Meir b'muzger. To me, it seems like Rab Meir is right when it comes to the situation of a muzger. So as we'll see here in the Gemara, you have two different time periods of a person that has a nega. Either in the time when he's locked up for a week, when he originally comes to the Kohen and shows him a nega, and it doesn't have a siman to say that he's tameh yet, so you lock him up for 1 week. And then after a week, the Kohen comes to see whether he found a siman of tumah or not. What happens if after a week the nega is unchanged? You lock him up for a second week, and then you have to look after the second week to see if he has any siman that he's tameh or not. Right, so Rab Meir says Rabbi says that Nirin divrei Rabbi Meir b'muzger. It appears to me that Rabbi Meir is right when the person is a muzger. When he was
the first lockup is before Chol Hamoed?
On Chol Hamoed. We're talking here about on Chol Hamoed. So he was locked up, and now after a week, he's coming to the Kohen on Chol Hamoed to ask him, what's the story with my nega? What's the halacha with it? Am I tired? Am I not? So Rabbi says that when there's a musker, on Chol Hamoed, Rabbi Meir is right that the Kohen could see the nega, to be metayir him. V'divrei Rabbi Yosi b'muchlet. And it appears to me that Rabbi Yosi is right regarding a muchlet. A muchlet is a person that he was already confirmed, he's already a mitzayir. He's outside of the machna, and now he's coming to the Kohen to ask the Kohen, did I become tired yet? Did my nega become smaller? Did it not? So then it appears that Rabbi Yosi is right, that he should not go to the Kohen, should not see him at all on Chol Hamoed. The Gemara will soon explain what's the reason for this difference.
He's already outside.
Yeah, he's already outside, and now he wants to come to the Kohen on Chol Hamoed to ask him whether he can come back into the Machna. Yeah, the reason for this difference we'll see soon in the Gemara.
He wants to come back to the Machna, so if he doesn't come to the Kohen, he stays out of the Machna.
Let's see. We'll see in the Gemara. The Gemara will soon explain. Omar Rave, so Rave now adds to this and says another point. Bit Tahoir, when it comes to a person which is tahir now, and he's coming to the Kohen. And a nega, a person that's still tahir, and now a nega appeared on his body. So nobody will argue that the Kohen does not see at all this person, because there's no reason to see him. Right now he's tahir. So what are you going to gain by seeing him, right? So even Rab Meir would say that you don't see him, the Kohen does not see his nega on Chol Hamoed. Now, behez gerishin, as I pointed out before, theoretically there could be 2 weeks that he's locked up. First week, and then if nothing changed, you lock him up a second week to wait and see if there'll be a siman of tumah. Now, behez gerishin, so after the first week, if he's coming to the Kohen to ask him, what's the status of my nega, the kula amale pliga de chazile. Over here, nobody will argue that the Kohen can come and see his nega. And Rashi explains why. Because what's the Kohen going to tell him? Either the Kohen is going to tell him, your nega is toir. It became smaller, and therefore it's toir. Or, if the nega remained as is, then the Kohen will tell him, okay, so your status remains the same as well, and you're going to have to be locked up for another week. So it's not going to get, the Kohen is not going to get any worse. He's not going to tell him that he's tameh. That's what Rashi here says. Now, Taisus says, isn't there a third option? Maybe after a week, the Kohen is going to discover that the nega grew, or he got a white hair in it, and that's a simmer for tumah, and maybe the Kohen is going to tell him that he's tameh. So Taisva says, based on what the Gemara is going to say soon, that no, if he's going to see that the nega actually has a simmer of tumah, so the Kohen will stay quiet. He won't tell him anything. After the first week, everybody agrees that the kohen has an option of being quiet if he sees that the nega has a simon of tumah. So therefore, all he's going to say is either he's going to tell him you're tired, or he's going to tell him we're waiting another week. So therefore, nobody argues that he could see him then. There's no chesaron whatsoever.
That's because it's Chol HaMoed.
Yeah, Chol HaMoed. Kipligi, when's the machlokes here? Behezger sheni. After the second week, so now you can't delay this anymore. At this point, so the kohen, if he sees tumah, at least according to Rabbi Yossi's opinion, the kohen is going to have to speak up. So now, Mar Savar, b'kohen talya milsa. Rab Meir says, even after the second week, the kohen actually does not have to speak up. It's completely up to the kohen if he wants to say what the status of this nega is. He sees the person after the second week. If he's going to be tired, he'll tell him, you're tired. If he's going to see, what's halacha after the second week? Even if the nega did not change, it's the same nega like from the beginning, it didn't get any additional simon tumah, so he's tar. So the kohen can tell him he's tar. What happens if he discovers that the nega is actually tameh? It's totally up to the kohen. He can keep his mouth closed and not tell him anything. And now, eat tahir, amalei tar. So therefore, Rab Meir says, if it's tar, he'll tell him it's tar. And vi tameh, shasik. And if not, he'll just be quiet. So therefore, there's no reason why not to see it in Chol HaMoed. But Rabbi Yossi's opinion is, when the Torah tells the kohen to see the nega, what does it say in the pasuk? It says, "L'taroi oy l'tamoi," that you have to see this nega to make it pure, to make it clean, or to make it tamei. So what ksiv? That's what the Torah says. So what does this mean? Kohen doesn't have an option to withhold information. If he sees that the nega is tamei, he's going to have to tell him that he's tamei. So after the first week, as I said before, Taisus explains, the kohen does have the right, even according to Rabbi Yossi, to be quiet. Because you can push it off another week. But after the second week, over here the pasuk says, L'tarei l'tamei. You're going to have to tell him clearly what's the state. Because there's no third week when it comes to a person that has a neg on his body. By nigge batim, there's a third week. But when you have a neg on the body, there's no third week. So the kohen is going to have to tell him. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi says, you shouldn't see the nega on Chol HaMoed.
L'tarei l'tamei is by the Hezker Sheni, or it's by
Dafka after the Hezger Sheni, yeah. Dafka after the second week.
That's what it says.
Yeah. Okay, now going back to the point that it said before. Omar Mar, so in the Braise it said, Omar Rebbe, so Rebbe said, Nirin Divri Rabbi Yossi b'muchlet. That it appears to me that Rabbi Yossi is right when it comes to a person that's a muchlet, that you don't see his nega at all. This person that's already outside the machna is already confirmed as a person which is tamei, that you don't see his nega in Chol HaMoed. V'divrei Rab Meir b'muzger. And it appears that Rab Meir is right regarding a person that was locked up, so on Chol HaMoed, you do see his nega. Maybe you could be metayirim. Fragt the Gemara, but in Abraisa we learned the exact opposite. That Rabbi says that Rabbi Yossi is right when it comes to a muzger, and Rab Meir is right when it comes to a muchlet. So it says the exact opposite in another Braisa. So how do we answer this? So the Gemara answers, Tanoihi. You're right, it's Taka Machlokes Tanoim, it's two different Braisas regarding Rabbi's opinion. Aliba de Rabbi, according to what Rabbi said. Now the Gemara explains the Machlokes of what they're actually arguing about. So before I read the Gemara inside, the point over here is, the Gemara is going to say, we don't want to be mevatel a person's simchas yom tov. But the question is, where does a person have more simchas yom tov? The fact that he could be with more people, that he could have more company with friends and so on? Or is more simchas yom tov the fact that we're giving him now the ability to be able to be with his wife, even though we're going to take away from him the ability to be with his friends and so on? That's the point the Gemara is going to speak about. Umemela comes out as follows. The halacha is, when a person is a muchlit, confirmed mitzayra outside of the machna, he's actually allowed to be outside of the machna together with his wife. So what happens then? He's taken away from all of his friends and all the people that he was with in the city, but when he goes out of the machna, he's able to be together with his wife. On the other hand, what happens when this person, which was already confirmed, the mitzayra outside the machna, and now you're mitayr him? You tell him, oh, your nega got healed, you can come back into the machna. Now the reverse is going to happen. Because the moment you mitayr a person that's a mitzayra, he has to now count 7 clean days to make sure, until he goes to the mikveh, that is. And he has to be separated from his wife for 7 days. But he can come back to the community. He can come back to all of his friends. So over here the reverse happens. He's able to go back to his friends and he's not able to be with his wife. So the shaila is, what would a person rather have for a simchas yom tov? Let's see in the Lashon of the Gemara inside.
How's better?
Huh?
How's better?
The what? Again, if one person would rather have for his Simchas Yom Tov to be able to be with his wife, even though he's going to be outside the Machna. Another person would rather be able to come to shul and be with all his friends in his community, even though he's going to have to be separated from his wife. Different people, different. So that's what the Gemara says. So the Gemara, Mar Savar Tzafseda Alma. So one opinion over here is that the person would rather be able to be together with people. So therefore, a person which is a muchlit, we should see his nega on Chol HaMoed. Why? Because if you're going to see his nega on Chol HaMoed, we're going to give him a chance that maybe we're going to be matayed him, and he'll be able to come back into the community. For the next 7 days he won't be able to be with his wife. It doesn't matter. He'd rather be able to come back to the community. And the other opinion is no, that a person that's a musger, that's the one that you should rather see as nega, because even if you're going to tell him his tameh, so what's going to happen? He's going to have to leave the community, but then he's going to be able to be with his wife. When he's musger, when he was locked up in a room, he wasn't able to be with his wife. But now, even though he's going to be sent out of the community, but at least he's going to be able to be with his wife. The ishtay adifale, it's better for him to be able to be with his wife. So that's the two versions of here in the Braisa of what Rebbe was saying. When should we rather go and see the person's nega regarding not destroying the person's Simchas Yom Tov? But now the Gemara takes us a step further. So what do we see from this? Lememre, shall we say, the muchlet mutter b'tashmish hamita, that a person that's confirmed as a mitzayre and we send him out of the machne, he's allowed to live with his wife. Sagt the Gemara yes, this is actually true. Vatanya, and like we learned in the Braisa, and here it brings a few opinions, it brings a source for this, and there's actually an argument about this. So one source is, it says, V'yashav mechutz la'olei shivas yamim, sits out of his tent for 7 days. Right, so what is this? So what do we see over here? She'ei asa b'tashmish hamita, that from here we see that he's not allowed to have any relations with his wife. Ve'ein oloi ele ishtoi, and ole, when it says that he has to be out of his tent, so that means that he has to be away from his wife. Shenema, like the pasuk says, leich emor lehem shuvu lechem la alechem. After Matan Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Yidden, you could return to your tents. Right, so there was the days of Prisha, they had to separate before Matan Torah. Then after Matan Torah, he says you can go back to your tent. So this pasuk is talking about the Mitzayre once we are being metired the Mitzayre. So then he has to, 7 days he has to separate from his wife. So we see that only then, in those 7 days, he has to separate from his wife, but not before then. Rabbi Yehuda brings a different pasuk. Shivas yomim yispurulai. You count 7 days for him. This is actually a pasuk that's not written regarding a Mitzayre, it's written regarding a Tmei Meis. And there it says that you count 7 days that he has to be clean and separate from his wife. So from this we compare also that by a Mitzayre as well, so we say Yemei Sfirai, the days that a Mitzayre has to count in order to purify himself, those 7 days, then he has to be separated from his wife. But V'lo Yemei Chalute, not those days, then he was confirmed as a Mitzayre outside of the Machne, he doesn't have to be separated from his wife. But then there's an opinion that argues on this. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says, Zayin Yemei Sfirai Kavol Chaimer Limei Chalutay. If we see here that the days that he's counting, the 7 clean days that he has to be separated from his wife, how much more so in the days that he's actually Tameh as a Mitzayre, so for sure he has to be separated from his wife. He's in a harsher place, he's in a lower place than of Tumas, so for sure he should have to be separated from his wife. So he makes a Kavol Chaimer. The Gemara says, V'omer Abchie Danti Lifnei Rebbe. I discussed this matter in front of Rebbe, and I said, Limadetonu Rabbeinu. Our Rebbe, you have taught us that Yosam, this individual, it's in the Yeshaya and in the Nevuah, that by the name of Yosam, Lehoya Leilu Uziyo Ela Bimei Chalutai. He was born to Uziyo through a relation that he had in a time when he was a Mitzayre. Uziyo was a Mitzayre, and Yosam was born from those days when he was a Mitzayre. So you see that a person is allowed to be with his wife in the time of a Mitzayre. And Rebbe told him, you're right, Afani Kacha Marti, you're right, I taka agreed to this, this is what I said, that a person can be with his wife even when he's a Mitzayre. The Gemara explains now, B'mai kamifliki, what's the basis of this machlekes here? Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says, Gali Rachmana b'mei Sfirai, the Torah tells me this idea that you have to be separated from your wife in the time when the Mitzayre is counting, V'kolshken b'mei Chalutay. And it's logical to say it's a Kavol Chaimer in a time when he is totally Tameh, that for sure he should be separated from his wife. Omar Savar, the other opinion, the two first opinions in this Braisa is, my the Gali, this that it clearly says that he has to be separated from his wife, that the Torah let us know that it's so. But my the Gali, what the Torah does not say, it's not so. Okay, this is very interesting. Taisus over here says, usually we know that the concept of a kal v'chomer, any person can make a kal v'chomer even on his own. You don't have to have a Kabbalah from L'Moshe Misinai to make a kal v'chomer. So why did they reject this kal v'chomer? Tosfos says there must be some kind of a pirche for this kal v'chomer, but they didn't agree to this kal v'chomer. Now the Gemara goes back to a different point that we learned before. L'memre, shall we say, based on what we learned before, the b'koyin talya milsa, that it's up to the koyin, he could decide whether he's going to say to the person that he's tamei or not. And Rashi explains that this is actually a question both on Rabbi Yossi's opinion and Rabbi Meir's opinion. For sure, Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Meir said, even when you actually see the nega and you see it's tamei, you could keep quiet and not tell him that it's tamei. And even according to Rabbi Yossi, you can decide not to look at it. Even though he has a nega and it's already a week and he was locked, you could decide not to look at it. So it's up to the kohen as well. So is it actually up to the kohen? So the Gemara says, yeah, it's up to the kohen. Tanya, like we learned in Abraisa, in the day that the kohen will see this nega. Why does it tell you to use this expression? In the day that he sees. There's days that the kohen sees the nega, and there's a day that he does not see the nega. From here they said, a chassan in the days of his Sheva Brachas, that he has a nega, so you give him the 7 days of the Sheva Brachas, loyal, lebeisay, leksusay, for him, for his wife, and for the clothing, for the celebration of, or it's actually loyal, lebeisay, leksusay is referring to the nega, whether the nega is in his body, whether the nega is in his house or in his garments. So you give him 7 days to be able to celebrate his Sheva Brachas. That's why it says, b'yom, some days you don't see a nega. And v'chein beregel, the same also on a Yom Tif, noisen loy shivas yimei regel. You give him the 7 days of the Yom Tif and you don't see a nega in these days. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda's source for this idea. Rabbi says, Ein it tzarech. You don't have to bring me a source from this pasuk of u'b'yom. It says in the Torah clearly when it comes to the nige batim, to a nega that there is in a house, v'tziva koyin upinus abayis. That before the koyin comes to say that the house is tamei, so he doesn't want all the possessions in the house to become tamei. So the koyin says, first empty everything out from the house, and then I'll say that it's tamei. So you see that it's in the koyin decides, and the koyin waits until they take everything out of the house. So if you see by a house that you wait even just for his own personal items to take it out, in order for the kohen to then come, for sure when you're talking about a dvar mitzvah, which is a yom tov for a chassan that just got married, that you'll wait for him and the kohen will not tell him that he's tamei. So we have 2 different sources for this concept, that it's up to the kohen and the kohen waits to come and say that it's tamei. What's the difference between these 2 sources, whether you learn it out from the pasuk of v'yoyim rois, or you learn it out from the nega by a house, where it says that the kohen waits? There is no practical difference between them, it's just a difference in the drasha. What's the source? That's all. But there's no actual difference. Rava says, no, there is a practical difference. The difference is whether the kohen waits regarding a nega for your own personal things. Right, so by the house, you definitely wait for your own personal things, as the Torah says clearly, that the kohen comes and waits and tells you to clear out your house. The question though is, do I compare and learn out from a house also to a nega that you have on your body? So Rabbi Yehuda holds that I compare, and I say that a nega that you have on your body, if you yourself are personally busy with something, the kohen will wait as well for you. Mashenkin, according to Rabbi, or that I reverse the opinions, Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda. So it's Rabbi that says that you compare it to the house, and therefore you wait for your personal needs. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, that I learn not from Ubiyayim Heirois, only if it's for a matter of a mitzvah. For a nega on your body, it has to be a matter of a mitzvah, and then you're going to wait. Like you learn out from the pasuk regarding a yontif or regarding a chassan, but not if you're talking about negei to divrei rishus. Okay. Yeah, by a house he's going to be moed. That's clear. The Rebbe speaks about this Gemara in a Sicha, Barichas and Chelik Lamed Zayin and Parshas Metzayra, or Tazria maybe. Tazria, and the Rebbe over there explains that when you say that you're learning it out from the house, the point is that you're being deiche. Really, it's a time that the kohen has to come and see the nega, but you're just pushing it off. That's the source from the house. Mashenkin, if you learn out from the pasuk b'yayim heirois, you're not pushing it off. The Torah is telling you there are certain days that you see a nega, and there are certain days that lachatchila it's not shaykh b'chlal to see a nega. You don't have to push it off. This is not a day that you see a nega if it's for a purpose of a mitzvah. That's really the point of the difference here. The Rebbe says another nafkamina that the Gemara doesn't say. What happens b'di'evet? If the Kayin went and saw a nega of a chassan or on a yontif when he wasn't supposed to see the nega, because it says ubiyayim. So if you learn out from ubiyayim, it's not a zman when you see a nega. If it's not the zman, so even if the Kayin saw it and b'di'evet and he came, he said it's tamei, it's not going to be tamei. This is not a zman that you could be metame a nega. Mashenkin, if you say that it's just that we're pushing it off because we're delaying it to give the person a chance to clear out his house, what's b'di'evet if you did actually end up seeing the nega and you told him he's tame, he's going to become tame. It's another nafkamina that Rebbe brings from this. Let's just finish the Indian here. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Mehasam like Gemrinan." I can't learn out from the house that we see that the Kayin delays coming to the house, and he allows him to clear out the house. Why? The Chiddushu. I see the whole concept of tumah by a house is a big Chiddush. Tuhu eitzim va'avonim. That by a house you have tumah on a level that you don't find anywhere else. That you have even pieces of eitzim, of wood, or even of stones. Ba'alma le'metama. Usually these are things that are not a keli, they don't become tummy at all. And v'hacha metama. Over here in a house, it becomes tummy. So you see that the whole inyan of a house is the whole tumah is a chiddush, and therefore the fact that you wait is also a chiddush. So I can't learn out from there regarding the nega that there is on the body of a person. Now, but Rebbe will respond to this and will say, you're right. And Rebbe will actually say you have to have both psukim. You have to learn it out from the house, and you also learn it out from the pasuk of b'yoyim reis. Itzrich, you need both. If we would only say the limud from b'yoyim reis, that there's some days that you see a nega and some days that you don't, have a minute, then I would say ledvar mitzvah in, ledvar reshus loy. That a Kayin waits for the purpose of a mitzvah, but he does not wait for the purpose of a reshus, of something that's your own personal things. So therefore, Kasav Rachmana v'tziva Kayin. So therefore, you learn out from the house that, from there you learn out that the Kayin waits even for your own personal things. And on the other hand, v'kasav Rachmana v'tziva Kayin, if the Torah would only write over there by the house that the Kayin waits for your personal things, Havamina Hanamili, Hani in, only there by the house. Does the Kayin wait? The lav tumah the gufe. For the house, it's not a tumah of your guf, and like the pasuk Gemara just pointed out, over there it's a chiddush, over there it's different. I would say that only by the house the Kayin waits. Avol tumah the gufe, but by the tumah of your body, I would say that maybe the Kayin should come and see it right away. So therefore, tziricha, you need the pasuk of v'yoyim reis to tell you that even for the tumah of the body, the Kayin waits as well. Okay, you should look up the Sikha, very geschmack Sikha. There the Rebbe explains it also. The Pnimiyas Anyan and Benegei Tayyid, you don't take away when a Yid is doing a mitzvah, so the Nega can't take away from the Koyach of the mitzvah or the Kedusha of the Yontif. And even more so, according to the other opinion, even a Yid, his own personal things, his own money, his own things, that the Torah, the money of a Yid is so powerful that a Nega can't come touch it. We don't want his personal things to become Tameh.